And our church has made some determinations in this because we don't want our church to be divided like the Corinthian church. We have asked those who have been given these sign gifts to refrain from practicing them in our assemblies, so that there is no sense of division, and that's how we function right now. If God ever leads in a different way, as the elders, we'll come up on that stuff and figure that stuff out and figure out how we're supposed to go. But that's how we roll now, and it's solely for the sake of unity. Are you with me? Because we should be gathered around the big things, not the little things. We're not going to let the little things separate us as a church. Little sermon on tongues over. All right. So he says, if I speak in tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm like a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Circle that word gong, and it's actually also translated in the Greek brass. And it's this picture. Anybody remember the megaphones, the cheerleaders? I guess they still have them. They'd amplify the voice, or the Victrola. Maybe you still have around. Tino, you got a Victrola? No? Anyway, all right. But it's got the big horn, on it to make the noise louder. Back in the days when this was written, they would hammer brass out, and as an amplification tool, they would make this big cone speaker type thing that would make speakers' voices louder or whatever. And so what I think this is really saying is that this is a resounding brass, or an amplified type brass that is up next to a clanging cymbal, just like one of the ones they hit in the drum set. It's called a kapell, and it was a cymbal. It was actually used in pagan worship ceremonies of the day. Here's what he's saying, and here's what I'm telling you. If we go out and we serve Jesus Christ, if we go out and share Jesus Christ in the world around us, and we do it without love, we're annoying. Write that down in your notes. Without love, I am annoying. Isn't that true? I mean, think of the loveless people in your life. Do they annoy you? You know why? Because if you live life without love, you are annoying. In fact, you're annoying like a clanging cymbal being amplified. There's fire alarms in my house. They don't just settle for one anymore. They put like one in every room. In our house, there's like 20. We don't have 27 rooms. Anyway, there's a lot of fire alarms. And they're all hooked to each other. And we have the most sensitive fire alarm in the history of fire alarms. I guarantee it. If you leave the door open for more than 3 seconds on a windy day, that thing is going off. If you leave the back door open while you're grilling, forget it. I mean, party on. And so that one alarm goes off, and then all of the alarms go off for like 10 seconds. And you sit there. We'll be having like a grill out with some, another family. We'll be like, so how was your week? We're just trying to have this conversation. It's annoying. The first night we lived in our house, just a quick side story. First night we lived in our house, they didn't wire them right, and so they went off at around 9:30 at night. They stayed on until about 11. And for we were a good Christian family. We're so grateful for our new house. We had just blessed a prayer, all that stuff. So we're like, God, whatever you want for us, we'll live with the fire alarm on the whole time if that's what you want. Not really. Anyway, but we were trying to stick it out, and hang in there. And then finally, I just started going around to every fire alarm, putting the ladder up there and just yanking it out of the ceiling. Everybody ever got to that point where you're just so frustrated? I went to the little box, the little master, whatever, with the burglar alarm, fire alarm, whatever it is in there. I cut every wire in the box. Just cut them all. I didn't care. I was about to burn my house down. See if the fire alarm works then. Anyway, yeah, but that's annoying. And listen, and that's that same annoying factor that your fire alarm gives you, or that constant whatever noise that your alarm clock. Am I hitting anybody here? That's how we sound to a world that we're trying to minister to when we go to them without love. Remember, the tongues that were spoken in those days were almost always evangelistic. They were meant to draw non-believers into the belief of Jesus Christ. But if the body of Christ at that time went out and spoke in these tongues, it says that in 1 Corinthians 14, that it's for the non-believers. If they spoke in these tongues and didn't love the people, it would have the reverse effect. It would repel people from Christ as opposed to drawing them to Him. That's the point of this whole thing. Write that down in your notes. That without love, we just have a much harder time reaching the curious. It's one of our goals here as a church. We want to reach the curious. We want to teach the change. That's those of you who know Jesus Christ. And then we want to challenge those of you who are committed to Jesus Christ to go deeper. Like the Dream Journal last week, we gave you that. We want everybody in here who has a commitment to Jesus Christ to go as far as they can in serving Him. But in us reaching the curious, in us reaching our community, those who don't know Jesus, if we come to them with every ministry ploy that we have, every trick in the book, and we do everything we can with our slickness or whatever to draw them into faith, but we fail to love them, then we blow up everything we put our efforts into. Without love, it amounts to nothing. We're just annoying. Think back to the person that had the privilege of leading you to Christ, a Sunday school teacher, a parent, a friend. Did you feel any love from them? It might even have been Billy Graham, but every time I watch that guy get up there, I sense genuineness. And that he genuinely loves the people that he's preaching to, and he wants them to make the change that he's preaching. Love, it's the tipping point. It's what brings us from this whole, maybe not, into, yes, I've got to hear that. I watched this happen over and over again during the years of my ministry. One of my buddies, he's now a youth pastor. His name's Shane. He grew up in our church. Actually, he didn't grow up in our church. He came to the church I worked at in Illinois on the arm of a very pretty girl. Yeah. Sometimes God moves in mysterious ways. But he came to our little youth group, and he heard the message of Jesus Christ, and shortly after that, coming from a family that never went to church and was far from God, he made a decision to trust Jesus Christ. Well, he was so excited about his new faith that he wanted to share it with all of his pals. Now, he was a big football player at school, and he had all these, buddies that were just like him before he came to faith, far, far from God. And, he could have gone out there and just dressed them down and blown their hair back with all this hellfire brimstone and, get right or get left, turn or burn, all that stuff. But no, you know what he did? He just kept loving these guys the way he'd always loved them. I remember one of his friends' names was BJ. BJ was the stud of the school, big, tall, good-looking kid, great athlete, all this stuff. And BJ, because he was a brother almost to this guy Shane, just started hanging out with Shane at church. Well, I got to sit in my little office in that little church and watch Shane lead BJ to Christ. And BJ trusted Jesus, not because of some great message that I preached or because of some slick song that someone sang or big light show. He trusted Jesus because he trusted Shane, and he knew that Shane loved him. Do you get the importance of that, church? We are the love of Christ to the world around us. 3 years later, BJ died, tragically. But I know that Shane and I both will see him again because of what Jesus has done to change his life, save his life. And that all started because Shane loved his friend. Listen, church, we need to be change agents in our world. We need to be, God's voice to a world that desperately needs us. But if we forget love, then we forget reaching them. Without love, we're annoying. Secondly, without love, I am nothing. Look what it says here. It says, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am what? Nothing. Zero. Zip. Now, he's moving from our work in the world around us with non-Christians, and now he's going to speak more specifically to our effects inside the body. All of these gifts of prophecy, of teaching, and of faith are things that impact the inner workings of the body of Christ. Prophecy, let me talk about that real quick. The gift of prophecy comes from the Old Testament prophets. I call them prophets with the big P. They're the ones that God gave the ability to go and speak to the nation of Israel and tell them where they needed to shape up and get set, and they predicted the future, and they did all these amazing things as God's voice to the world that they lived in. Now, that's why their words are copied down. In fact, as you read the prophets, I read this past week, 221 times in the duration of the prophets' content, those prophets say this phrase, thus saith the Lord, or as God says. And so these prophets came as God's mouthpiece to the world around them, and they spoke truth to the worlds that they were in. Well, the gift of prophecy, little p, I say little p because we're not gift of prophecy, big P. No one's going to add anything else to the Bible. Is everybody agreeing with me on that? No more Joseph Smiths or anything like that. That's all a bunch of crock. Okay? You with me? It is. I'm sorry. There it goes. All right. So